The start to the Philadelphia 76ers season has been about as disastrous as possible. As they have now dropped to 5 and 15 in the standings, there is just about one lone bright spot with this Sixers team, that being rookie Jared McCain. I'm going to break down in this video just how impressive his start to the season has been, why this is not normal for a rookie by any definition, and why these Sixers very well may have stumbled onto the next face of the franchise. Now, I'm recording this video fresh off the loss at the hands of the Orlando Magic, a disappointing loss in which referees absolutely played a role down the stretch, but Jared McCain taking his opportunity in the starting role once again, finishing with 24 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, shot 10 of 17 from the field, 3 of 6 from beyond the three-point arc, played 39 minutes. This was his 5th game this season playing 35 minutes, and I'm here to declare that he should be an absolute must-start from here on out. And to show you a bit of what he did, look at him knocking down this three-pointer on the corner off the pump fake, watch him fly by, and stare down the bench. And that is one area that has really stood out to me about Jared McCain of late, is this is not a dude who you should think of as this soft guy on the court who's just there to do his TikTok dances, have his nails painted. This dude is a warrior on the floor, and it is time that it is recognized as such. Now, when speaking on kind of the wider view for what he means for this Sixers team, I see zero reason why he should not be an everyday starter from here on out. Now, it's pretty clear to me that there is not that trust in Nick Nurse. It is always so frustrating to me and maddening how these veteran head coaches have such a hard time playing young guys. And for Nurse specifically, he was asked a little bit about this, continues to keep things pretty close to the vest on sort of his opinions, which is very frustrating, kind of seeing these quotes come out. But he was asked about McCain kind of when he went through that little bit of a shooting rut, and what Nick Nurse said was, quote, "He's a good shooter, but even good shooters have nights where it doesn't go in. We've talked about his confidence, and he's going to keep firing, which he should do." And I do think good shooter is even a little bit of an understatement here. I think Jared McCain has a chance to go down as one of the premier shooters in the NBA. When you look at the form that he has, the footwork, just elite shooting footwork from day one walking into the league. And to kind of talk about his stats as a whole on the season, averaging 16.1 points per game, 2.4 rebounds, 2.5 assists, shooting 45.9% from the field, 37.7% from beyond the three-point arc there, 36% from the corner. And by the way, this is before his performance tonight, so we will see these numbers creep up a little bit more. So I do want to approach this from two angles, sort of the short term and the long term. For the short term side of things, I do think that he has to be in the lineup. Now, in fairness to Nick Nurse, with the clear reasoning for him not having this long leash, it is on the defensive side of the floor. That Jared McCain is 6'2". You're trying to pair him with Tyrese Maxey, who has some physical limitations himself. Both those guys falling well below the NBA average for size there. So you got to combat that with having these versatile athletic wings around him. And for McCain specifically, to me, it's very clearly less about his individual ability on defense. Straight up, I think when you get him in one-on-one spots where you just ask him to guard a guy, he's pretty passable. That he competes on that end. He's got good active hands, slides his feet, tries to move in front as much as he possibly can. He's competitive on that end. He's not a bad just defender straight up there. But what I do think he's lacking at this point in the game, which is not uncommon by a rookie by any means, he does miss rotations when they're playing switch defense, which they've leaned into heavily, particularly during the small ball stretch, playing a lot of KJ Martin at the 5, seeing Gershon Yabusele get those type of opportunities, that you're switching everything. You're not glued to a man on the defensive end. There's constant rotations. Guys are passing off other guys. And I did see specifically in tonight's game with the Magic, McCain missed on several of those. I do think that's very clearly why Nurse is hesitant. He seems to lean more towards that defensive-minded approach as a head coach. It's interesting when you look back at his history as a coach. He very much was an offensive-oriented guy during his upbringing. That kind of, I guess, personality or outlook sort of shifted during his time in Toronto, and he kind of is known as more of a defensive-minded guy at this point in time. It's interesting to me because that was not at all the book on him coming up, but certainly seems to be the case at this current state. But I will say, when evaluating this Sixers team, it's very clear to me that offense is the bigger need. Now, to dive into a little bit of the Sixers team as a whole, do just want to pull up their stats from everyone here. We obviously have only seen 4 games of Joel Embiid. Paul George was just 10 logged on the season. He is coming off his best performance as in the night before matchup against the Charlotte Hornets. Paul George finishing with 29 points, 8 assists, and 6 3-pointers there. We did finally get a look at what the Paul George version that we thought we signed this offseason actually looked like. Then beyond that, there is obviously Tyrese Maxey. And when looking at other sources of offense, there is not a ton on the Sixers roster. Kelly Oubre, we know the story. There are the highs and there are the lows. And for what it's worth, I think Oubre has been pretty solid over this recent stretch, so don't want to come down on him too hard. Caleb Martin, the hitch in his shot is looking more and more concerning. I will not lie. And when looking at these shooting splits overall, just 40% from the field, 30% from beyond the three-point arc, less than 10 points per game, which you just don't love to see from a guy who's logging some significant minutes on this Sixers team. I still like Caleb Martin quite a bit. Still think that when this team is fully constructed and we have a chance to see it all together, which I pray is the case, he will be just fine, but we have not seen that just yet. Then beyond that, Gershon Yabusele, a guy you want creating offense? Probably not, although Yabusele has been awesome for this team and don't mean that as a slight in any direction. Kyle Lowry, Andre Drummond, KJ Martin, Eric Gordon, Reggie Jackson, none of these guys bring the juice that Jared McCain does from an on-ball standpoint and just the constant motion that he is off the ball as well. That's something that drastically changes how teams guard this Sixers team, and for Jared McCain specifically, I'm so impressed with the skill set of being able to create shots without having the ball in your hand. That is so valuable, and that is why I see this long-term stardom being built. Now, to speak a little bit more on the long-term side of things, I want to be clear here that this is not me tossing Tyrese Maxey to the side. This is not a lack of belief in Tyrese specifically, but I do just want to talk about how special this is with Jared McCain. These are not normal things that he is doing for a rookie, and I'm not saying that I'm guaranteeing right now that Jared McCain will be better than Tyrese Maxey, but what I am 1,000% saying at this very moment is the 20-year-old version of Jared McCain that walked into the NBA in year one is head and shoulders more polished as a basketball player than the 20-year-old version of Tyrese Maxey that walked into the NBA at 20 years old. Now, both these guys have an incredible reputation for how much hard work they put in, constantly working to improve their game, all areas there. But for McCain, he is a far more polished product than I thought was be the case. I kind of had the expectation that he would be a guy that is just a shooter, that is able to, have some spot-up opportunities, get in some garbage time minutes, maybe impact a game here and there. Nope, he is ready for the spotlight right now. Now, to put in perspective just how crazy of a start this season is, I understand this is a bit of a hand-picked stat here, but this does kind of put it in perspective here. So to dive into this stat, this is 4 single seasons of players aged 20 or younger in the NBA in the qualified minutes per game leaderboard, the regular season, so sorted by descending points from points per 100% per 100 possessions. To simplify this, players under 20 years old, points per 100 possession in a season here. Number 1, Luka Doncic. Number 2, Zion Williamson. Number 3, Jared McCain. Number 4, LeBron James, Victor Wembanyama, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, Luka Doncic, and Kyrie Irving again. Now, I understand we are 20 games in this NBA season. There is a strong and honestly more likely outcome that this does not last for the entirety of the season. But just to put in perspective how impressive this performance is, did want to put up this stat on the screen there. And to reflect it, the NBA is also on notice that just about from start to finish this year, Jared McCain being considered the Rookie of the Year favorite. We saw him smack down on his chest, cheering to himself, letting the crowd know that he believes he's the Rookie of the Year, and guess what? He's right about it as well. Now, to talk about the long term a little bit more here, what I said about the Tyrese Maxey draft pick for so long is that he extended the Joel Embiid championship window. If that was not a slam dunk pick with the 21st overall selection with Tyrese Maxey, if that just ended up a fine role player, which would have been a totally adequate outcome for a guy being drafted with the 21st overall pick, we're probably talking about a new era of Sixers basketball right now. I don't see a world where Joel Embiid is willing to stick it through to see out another potential star pairing where obviously Paul George came in. This was, the James Harden era we saw for a period of time. It was Maxey that was that beacon of hope that had him holding on. So while the Tyrese Maxey draft pick may have extended the championship window with Joel Embiid, I think the Jared McCain draft pick may have created a complete alternate timeline for how this organization could be successful. I'm talking about I do see a world where a backcourt of Jared McCain and Tyrese Maxey can create some significant problem for opposing teams. Now, with that being said, this is several years in the future and some significant adjustments being needed to be done to the personnel around him. When thinking about how you can combat that you're going to have 2 smaller guards, obviously in the NBA nowadays, you don't see a lot of success for that. You can look at a team like the Cleveland Cavaliers that are clearly running away with things and having an incredibly impressive season with 2 smaller guards with Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland in the backcourt there. But how did they do that? Well, they have 2 big men in Jared Allen and Evan Mobley who protect the paint at an unbelievably high rate. They have a number of athletic kind of wings or rangy defenders that are rotate around them. I still think they're a little bit lacking in that category, which is one of my concerns for the Cavs there. But the point still stands that you filled out your roster to allow. Let's look at the New York Knicks. One of the reasons that I've been so critical of the Knicks are not believing them in as true championship contenders, and I look at them slightly different this year after the Karl Anthony Towns trade as I did the last season for sure. But one of the reasons that I was doubtful is it's really hard to find some evidence of a guard 6'2" or under having the amount on his plate as Jalen Brunson has had in a Knicks uniform, having success deep in the playoffs. And why I think that particularly applies to Jalen Brunson is it's the way that he goes about scoring his points. Him getting in the paint, getting in the post, pivoting, cuts, jump stops, all these little like tedious stuff that wear on you. This is not Steph Curry flying around three-pointers, knocking down long-range shots. That is the angle that Jared McCain plays. That is more what I'm open to for that. But the point still stands that when looking at this Knicks team, how did they make that possible with Jalen Brunson as the featured guy? Well, you surround him with guys like OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Precious Achiuwa, these long, rangy, athletic defenders that are able to make up on the defensive side of the floor there. So in the long run, I do see a world where Jared McCain is being handed the keys to the franchise. I don't know if that's a guarantee, but I am more encouraged of that being a possibility than I ever thought could be the case. Look at the swagger in this dude after he hits the shot, just staring down the bench here is really telling the way that he carries himself, the manifestation that he loves talking about, and how locked in mentally that he clearly is. And it's very obvious that he is ready for the spotlight. This dude has every bit of the superstar personality. He has been in the limelight of the public for his entire lifetime, and he's showing it on the basketball court as well. So every area of his game has been more impressive than I expected to be the case. His obviously scoring is kind of his go-to figure there. His finishing around the rim, some of these tough up and unders, his little instincts as a playmaker. I think he's a little bit more of a true point guard than we've seen with Tyrese Maxey to this point. So the future is bright with Jared McCain. I think how the rest of this season goes will really dictate where these timelines coexist. I still think there's a world where everything can get back on track for this Sixers season. They can begin to work them way up the standings. But what at least I have to rest my head at night and be confident about is there is a bright future on the horizon. For so long, it felt like after the Joel Embiid era, there was just nothing to look forward to for this Sixers team. That was the drop-off. That was the reset. That was the rebuild for the process that clearly has not worked just yet. Well, now there's Jared McCain to rescue us from all of that. So we will see what he develops into from here, but it is impossible to have just about any complaints about how his rookie season has started outside of him not playing enough basketball for this Sixers team. So to Nick Nurse, let's leave him in the lineup for every game moving forward. This dude has earned the starting spot on this Sixers team, and especially based on where they are in the standings, what do you have to lose, my friend? So we will see how things play out from here, but very excited about what Jared McCain brings to the Sixers team and cannot wait to see what he grows into in the coming years. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I want to challenge you to give me your number one player comp for Jared McCain. I think he falls a little bit in between the scale of Seth Curry to Steph Curry. I think he's a far better player than Seth, but we will see what he develops into in the long run. There is some Jalen Brunson to his game as well, but I want to hear from you guys. Do you have any name a player that stands out to you that stylistically you see that you think they play a similar way? Let it rip in the comments there. As always, appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning in. Make sure you're smashing that subscribe button and dropping a like on this video. I'll be back talking to you next time right here on Sixers Digest, hopefully with a couple wins on the horizon as well. Peace.